One Piece Chapter 1045 begins its story on the Skull Dome rooftop, exactly where the previous issue left off. The chapter is entitled The Next Level, and starts off with the title page. Kaido began by saying that he thought Luffy had really died, to which the latter agrees and says he thought so as well. The Yonko begins commenting how his opponent's fruit is very strange. Its environment-affecting properties indicate a Paramesha awakening, yet the transformative form he's currently in is indicative of a zone type. Luffy doesn't seem to be paying much attention to this, simply floating in the air and relaxing. Kaido takes the opportunity to launch a sneak attack and bite down on him, which the latter tries to escape from. However, he stops resisting and lets himself be swallowed, but transforms his body so he can slither in a zigzag pattern and hurt his opponent from the inside. Upon reaching Kaido's midsection, Luffy stops and uses Gum Gum Balloon to blow up to a massive size inside his opponent's body. This elicits a very painful reaction from Kaido, just as Momonosuke and Yamato arrive at the rooftop. The two are extremely confused, questioning how he became so large. Kaido comments that his body is like rubber now, followed by Luffy exclaiming that he sees two lights. The latter's arms then emerge from the dragon's eyes and grab his nose. He then uses a Gum Gum escape rocket to launch through Kaido's eyes and out of his body, still in his huge balloon form. Luffy laughs and then begins blowing the air out of his mouth, launching him up into the sky before preparing for another attack. This one is called Gum Gum Giant, and he grows to a massive size with his regular body proportions. Before he brings his massive, towering foot down over Kaido, Momonosuke questions who that could be, saying that Luffy's voice is coming from that person. He questions if it really can be the Straw Hat Captain. Out of the blue, Kaido bites his opponent from the side, causing a painful reaction. In response, the now gigantic protagonist grabs Kaido's horns in one hand, and tail in the other. Luffy begins using him like a jump rope, aptly calling the move Gum Gum Jump Rope. He swings Kaido around in jump rope fashion as the two crash back down to the rooftop. He's able to land a Boro breath before they crash, however, resulting in a point-blank blast. Yamato exclaims in shock that it hit properly, revealing Luffy to be completely blackened from the ash before shaking it off. The One Piece Chapter 1045 then states Luffy revs up like the Roadrunner and launches himself back to Onigashima. This, apparently, leaves a trail of smoke and fire behind him as he rockets downward. He then confronts Kaido in his hybrid form, preparing a new move before being interrupted by a conqueror of three worlds, Ragnarok. Luffy's head is blasted through the rooftop and onto the live floor, where his eyes and tongue pop out of his head in Looney Tunes fashion. This face terrifies all the beast pirates present, yet it seems to elicit similar reactions from Nami, Otama, Kid, Law, and Chopper. Luffy then whips his head back up to the rooftop through the hole, where it sharply snaps back to his body, causing him to fall over. Kaido comments on how his opponent's behavior and powers remind him of an Monogatari. One Piece Chapter 1045, Kaido tells Luffy he's put on a spectacular show as the latter reels in pain. He continues, saying he's clearly reached his limit and cannot take him down. Luffy stands up with a determined look, telling Kaido to shut up and brushes off his claims. Yet as he says this, his awakened Nika features begin disappearing, returning his hair to black. Furthermore, his face shrivels up and droops as if he's aged years in seconds. He then drops to his knees, expressing his exhaustion. In response, an irritated Kaido asks who the hell he is, before also taking a knee and showing signs of exhaustion for the first time in the Wano arc. This alone makes One Piece Chapter 1045 a momentous issue, as it clearly shows that Luffy is succeeding in wearing his opponent down. Luffy continues, saying he almost died and that this battle is insanely exhausting. Kaido responds that he can die without worries since someone will surely pass on the story of him and his friend's fight. Luffy retorts, however, that he doesn't need anything like that, since all that's left when people die are their bones. One Piece Chapter 1045 then shows Yamato and Momonosuke, where the former realizes that it really was Luffy, just with a different appearance. The latter, however, comments on how his voice is disappearing, referencing the aspect of his soul which he can hear with the voice of all things. Showing he's not done yet, Luffy gets back up with his hand on the ground, matching the iconic Gear second pose. Steam emanates from his body as he says it's not over yet, saying the names of Momo, Otama, Kinemon, and Pedro in a motivational way. Kaido points out that his opponent will die like this, with a smile on his face. Luffy emits Conqueror's Haki Lightning in response, saying it doesn't scare him before telling his heartbeat to rise. Kaido raises his kanabo, saying bring it on. Luffy, however, doesn't even notice this, and instead dances happily to the drums of liberation while commenting how that sound has arrived. Yamato tells him to watch out as Kaido's kanabo approaches, and wraps his head around it as it hits him. His head then conforms to its shape, as if the kanabo was pressed into a very malleable substance. Yamato looks shocked as Luffy begins running around like an old cartoon character. His head is still in the kanabo's shape as he complains that the attack hurts. Kaido responds by swinging the kanabo down once more, this time with Conqueror's haki coating. This drives Luffy to the ground, which has now become like rubber instead of rock. The ground absorbs and is pushed back by the force of the blow, before rebounding and sending Luffy flying into the air. His body is now pressed like an accordion from the attack, as he somersaults through the air to a large boulder nearby. He then bends his knees and counts down from 3 as his face returns to the Nika form. The boulder has been turned into rubber, while Luffy built up tension in his legs, allowing him to bounce off it like a trampoline. This gives him tremendous force, with a smoke trail even coming from behind him and Conqueror's haki lightning also present. He begins spinning his arms rapidly like a gum-gum pinwheel, but with speed similar to gum-gum Gatling. Kaido wonders to himself who Luffy could possibly be, as he's doing things he never thought possible. He specifically points out how much freedom he has in battle, saying he's never seen anything like it before. Now speaking out loud, Kaido continues stating that the person to take him down doesn't exist. He swings his kanabo, coated with Conqueror's haki, but Luffy's arms go around it, presumably deflecting or stopping it. In One Piece Chapter 1045's final panels, Luffy's massive fist goes through Kaido's face and out the back of his head, with the attack coated in Conqueror's haki. Yamato and Momonosuke look shocked as Kaido goes flying while Luffy's fist returns to him. Closing out One Piece Chapter 1045, Luffy seems delighted with the fight and expresses so with a smile on his face. Luffy and Kaido are still on the Skull Dome rooftop, with the former questioning what he should name his move from the end of the last chapter. The latter, meanwhile, questions who he is, which seems to visibly confuse Luffy. Perspective then shifts to Zunisha, who begins by saying that the rhythm of the drums of liberation is taking them back. They continue, saying they're filled with excitement and feel as though Joy Boy is right there with them. They feel that this event is the culmination of destiny, while emphasizing their faith. In Luffy, back on the rooftop, Luffy reaffirms to Kaido that he is Monkey D. Luffy, the one who will surpass him and become the king of the pirates. Kaido responds saying that he's happy to see his opponent as arrogant as ever. He says that when both your mind and body are caught up by your ability, that is what awakening means. He reaffirms his awe at Luffy's ridiculous power, saying he's lost nearly everything he's built up to this point during the course of their fight. He says he's sure the same occurred for Luffy, but the latter responds saying that there are things he must take back, even if they come with costs. Suddenly, the Straw Hat begins coughing, which is presumably from smoke that is rising up to the rooftop. Kaido explains that the flame must have surrounded every floor by now, teasing that the thousands of Kozuki forces must be trapped and waiting to burn to death. Luffy responds by saying that he has faith in his friends and has to focus on his job, as Kaido attacks him with a demolition gust. Fight. Yamato reaffirms that Momo has to make flame clouds to replace Kaido's, as Onigashima will otherwise crash into mainland Wano as a result of their disappearance. She emphasizes that this was the only way to win from the beginning, causing him to become flustered at this news. In the chapter's final page, as Luffy is seen grabbing a bolt of lightning, Yamato emphasizes that Onigashima is going to fall after Kaido's defeat. He, meanwhile, seems to be watching his opponent make this grand attack with a look of welcome determination on his face. Kaido remarks on how Luffy was able to actually grab lightning, as Luffy uses a new move called Gomu Gomu no Kaminari and hurls the lightning bolt at Kaido. Kaido, however, sidesteps it and smacks him with Hasaikai, sending him flying off only for Luffy to grab another lightning bolt and swing around and back at Kaido with an inflated leg. Before he can use another move though, Kaido dodges and strikes Luffy on the head, where he declares that in the end, a strong devil fruit power isn't enough to conquer the seas, revealing that Gall D. Roger himself had no devil fruit power yet he was still able to become the Pirate King. Luffy gets propelled down to the ground, which bounces him back up, and as he tries to defend himself, Kaido yells that to conquer the seas, the one thing that truly matters is haki. He then hits him with Daitoku Reime Hake which injures Luffy, but he still grabs Kaido and starts dragging him up with him to the sky, only for Kaido to try and shake him loose while changing into his full dragon form to blast him with Tatsumaki Kaifu, acknowledging that even with his awakened power, he's still weak to slashing attacks. While that was going on, the people of the Flower Capital watch their sky lanterns float up into the air with the hope that their wishes will reach the heavens, as they know they will return to being slaves again. Kaido then blasts Luffy with Bolo breath to get him to let go while demanding he gets back down. In the castle, while the fire continues to rage on in some parts of the island, Hyogoro is informed that the island is falling, which he says is because Kaido is at the end of his rope. He asks everyone what outcome they would prefer: Luffy defeating Kaido and causing the island to fall and potentially kill everyone, or Kaido to win and extend everyone's lives by only a little while. The samurai immediately say they're okay with dying as long as the innocent continue to live, and they cheer for Luffy to fight without worrying about them. Some beasts pirates retort that they may all die, but Hyogoro doesn't mind. In the basement, Usopp and Hamlet are running for their lives from the raging fire, only to get swept up in Raizo's water, to their relief. On the treasure repository floor, Orochi has managed to get the sea stone nail out of his body, allowing him to transform while still on fire, though he is reduced to one head left. Still, he proclaims that if he dies, he will spite Oden by taking Hiyori with him. Back on the roof, Luffy tells Momonosuke to get the island out of the way, as he inflates his hand to a humongous size coated in haki to finish Kaido with. Luffy has told Momonosuke to move Onigashima out of the way, who responds that it can't be done. He begins to say it's not possible but remembers his mother, father, and childhood sister as he hears a voice instill their confidence in his reviving the Kozuki clan. This seems to give Momonosuke the push he needs to do what must be done, as he begins pushing Onigashima with his dragon form body. Meanwhile, Kaido and Luffy are staring each other down as they prepare to attack one another. The former reminds the latter that Wano's hero burned to death 20 years ago, as his body ignites into a blaze. The new technique, called Flaming Drum Dragon, allows Kaido to cover his body with flames so hot that part of the skull dome is ignited and melted from contact. He tells Luffy that this has been a lawless land since Oden's death and that the people have waited all this time for you saviors to show up. Kaido then tells him that his right hand won't come crashing down because he'll vaporize it. He responds by mocking Kaido before prepping his attack and remembering boss Hyogoro teaching him to use Ryuo for contactless attacks. As a result, his hand won't be vaporized, letting Luffy launch his attack confidently without worry. The two then launch their offensives, Luffy's being a Gum Gum Bajrong gun and Kaido's being a Rising Dragon Blazing Bagua. The former's attack references Bajrong Bali, the Hindu monkey god who was potentially the inspiration for Sun Wukong. The kanji used for Luffy's attack means Monkey King, further establishing the monkey deity motif for him. Shows Luffy and Kaido beginning their clash, as the two stare each other down in the chapter's final panels. During their clash, Kaido commends Luffy for making it this far, but he believes he can never change the world. Kaido then thinks back to his youth. When he was 10 years old, he was already formidable in his home of Vodka Kingdom. A few years later, however, the kingdom was revealed to be struggling to make ends meet with the heavenly tribute, resorting to going to war to seize loot to pay for their position in the world government. In order to guarantee a spot in the Leveli, and because they could not handle him anymore, the king of the country offered up the young Kaido to the world government, much to his personal fury. Still, he was able to escape the Marine's custody, earning himself a bounty and a rumor that he only gets captured to eat something on the prison ships. 2 years later, on Hashinosu, Kaido furthered his reputation with his formidable strength, which led to Edward Newgate bringing him to Rocks, news that shook the world. Eventually, the Rocks pirates fell and Kaido struck out on his own. As he was forming the Beast's pirates, he was approached by Kurozumi Higurashi, who offered him a proposition that led to his alliance with Kurozumi Orochi in Wano. Kaido accepted her terms and much later, he declares he will teach the peace-loving nobles the hellish nature of war, and create a world where one's worth is determined by strength. Later, he confides to King that he overheard Yamato mention Joy Boy, and if he is the person King is waiting for, then he knows exactly who he is. In the present, Joseph decides to flee as Yamato cheers for Momonosuke to create large flame clouds, which he desperately tries to. However, Kaido's flame clouds have completely disappeared, meaning the island will fall soon. Kaido asks Luffy what kind of world he wants to make, just as Momonosuke finally produces his own flame clouds to support the island. As for Luffy, he tells Kaido that he wants to create a world where his friends can eat as much as they like as his fist tears through Kaido's fire dragon and punches him in the face, sending him straight and deep into the ground. Momonosuke drops Onigashima safely near the flower capital and passes out from exhaustion, as does Luffy. Kaido changes back to his human form as he continues to sink in the ground, eventually falling into a huge magma chamber underneath Wano, which is also what happened to Big Mom. As a result, several fissures start forming underneath the seas of Wano. Yamato catches Luffy as he changes back to normal and passes out, and she commends both Luffy and Momonosuke for their actions. Everyone then starts feeling the ground shake, and Babanuki is informed that unusual activity was occurring on the surface of the sea. Just then, a huge eruption occurs under the sea, and Luffy is officially declared the victor of the decisive battle. The people in the flower capital witness the explosion and become confused by both it and Onigashima outside. As everyone starts questioning what's going on, Momonosuke appears before his people, who initially mistake him for Kaido, but he clarifies that he isn't him, and that the eruption was Kaido's final send-off. Hey you, yes I mean you, before you leave don't forget to press that subscribe button, and what are your thoughts on this chapter? Leave your answers in the comments section below.